Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Uh, Happy Friday. Welcome to Finance Day. This is our sixth annual Finance Day. I want to first thank everybody for coming in from the department, supporting us, to everybody in the college to help us put this event together. And also, I want you guys to recognize our FMA board members for helping me over the past, I would say, 3 weeks at least, and even before that, reaching out to folks. So, is it better? Oh. So, I want you guys to give it up for them for putting this event together and helping me with all that you see. So. And with that, I want to hand it to Mark to share a few words, and then we'll start our panels. So,
Thanks, Mo. Just a few thoughts. First, I want to thank our sponsors, right? We have some strategic relationships with some companies that help make days like today possible. And I'm so grateful. They're going to be here later on today. And for the companies that are here, if you're not a sponsor, we'd love to talk about a strategic relationship with you. We'd love that. And the money is used to host days like today, to buy pizzas at the FMA events. I think there's about, I don't know, Spencer, about 150 members, or 90 members. How many do you have? Okay. 80 or 90 in attendance. So it's just a great group. So that money is used to help them take trips, learn about business opportunities, and really appreciate the support. So Annex Wealth Management will be here later today, Jewelers Mutual, Savant Wealth Management, Johnson's Wealth Management, and Sky Edge Wealth are our sponsors, and they'll be here today. And the last comment I have, I'm an alum, and I graduated from here about 40 years ago. And I remember, believe it or not, I'm old, but I remember what it was like to be in this seat at this time. And I was a first generation college student. So even though I had great parents, very supportive, very loving, this was all new to me. And so what I learned, because I got involved in FMA, I learned about businesses, right? I learned about businesses and I learned about opportunities because I got involved. And the other thing I learned because I got involved, I learned really the importance of the transition from being a student to being a professional. And that transition is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is take advantage of days like today. Take advantage of the career fair. Reach out, talk to people. All these people would love to talk to you today, but reach out, ask them questions, get used to having that type of discussion to learn about opportunities. And I think you're going to find that they're going to be very supportive in answering your questions. So with that, let's make it a great day. Thank you, Mo and team.
thank you, Mark. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, the emphasis here is to help students learn about career opportunities within finance. Finance is a broad field, so the whole point of this super day that we have is to get as many folks as possible to come and explain about what each part of finance means for them and possibly for you, if you would be interested in this part of career path that they've taken for a few years, some of them. They graduated a few years ago, I still remember, and some of them long ago, before I even joined the faculty here. So that's the whole purpose. Before I forget, we have QR codes on pretty much most of the slides we have. So make sure that you scan the QR codes. Let me bring it back right there. That's for the attendance and also for the raffle that we're going to have throughout the event. So we're going to have $4 tickets raffled, and I want you guys to give it up for our amazing colleague Jeff Hahn for sponsoring the tickets. He hates me for saying that every year, but I still say it. So thank you so much. I guess with that we can start our first panel. So our first panel is going to be a corporate finance banking panel. So I want to welcome folks to join, and we can start the first panel with that. And nobody wants to be close to me, so that's good. I thought you were going to say too. So. That's too intimate, you know. So, um, so I want to also share something that might be interesting to you as our panelists and also for the students. So this is a makeup of the students who will be attending our event today. So we have a good number of freshmen, sophomore, and what I'm happy about that this group is growing over the course of the year. So when I was putting the slides together, I looked at last year, it's bigger than last year, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a continuous trend. And a lot of the students attending are obviously finance majors, but that's not um, everything. So we have double majors and students from other, I think, departments also joining us. Mostly, again, accounting, economics, but so I think that should help us with some of the questions we want to ask. So first thing though, I want them to get to know you a little bit. So a brief introduction about yourself and what you do. So where do we start? Should we start with Jeff?
We can, if you'd like to.
Yeah.
So my name is Jeff Fricke. I work for the Bank of Glarus as the VP of HR. I also remember being in these exact seats not all that long ago. So it was great to walk in today and see one of our student employees. So shout out to you out there. I see you out there. So love to support the school and talk about finance. Would like to see the HR measurements of students increase from 0 there because it's a great field. So.
Hi, I'm Bob Bastien, work at First Citizen State Bank here as a commercial lender. Yeah, I haven't sat in these seats ever because this building didn't exist when I went to school here, so.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jaime Wolf. I work for Rockwell Automation, so I think I'm often the lone corporate FP&A representative on these panels, but that's what I do.
I'm Melissa Torres. I work at Oak Bank, just in Fitchburg outside of Madison, and I'm also part of the RMA, which is the Risk Management Association board.
Hi, I'm Barry Tessmann. I'm a supervisory examiner for the FDIC in the Milwaukee field office. Do scheduling and everything for the southern part of the state. Been with the FDIC for 33 years, came right out of Whitewater, and just like before, this building did not exist when I was here.
Good morning. It's good to see everybody. Everybody's up early. Everybody's dressed up. Looks good. But no, Adam Mannetter. I graduated in 2001 from Whitewater, so it's good to be back. I'm with PNC, so I'm in our corporate banking team and covering all of our risk, underwriting, and anything with debt origination. So good to meet you all. Please ask questions. Don't be shy as we go about today.
Yeah, morning, everyone. Nick Goran. I work with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. I've been with them for a little over 3 years now after graduating from Whitewater in May of 2021. Some of you might still remember my little brother, Jake, who was involved with FMA last year.
All right. Yeah. Nick is Jake's brother, used to be the president of FMA. Some of you remember. Next week is our career fair. One of the reasons we emphasize putting Finance Day right before career fair is to help students understand what to expect when they go look for internships, career opportunities. So I want to start with you, Nick, since you're the most recent alum, I would say. So what do you recommend them to do essentially. What are your tips for students trying to look for any sort of internships or opportunities out there?
Yeah, well, first, I'd certainly, look at the list of the employers that are going to be there and identify, however many, maybe, 3, 5, 10, employers that you'd really be interested in, what opportunities they have. Then start researching those companies, get an idea of exactly what they do, different things, whether it be current events, what they've been experiencing recently. Then, go up and make sure you introduce yourself to them. And be able to work some of that knowledge from your research into the conversation, and be open and upfront exactly where you're at in your current educational career, what kind of opportunities you're going to be looking for, because that's really helpful as someone who goes to those events, is knowing exactly where you're at and what exactly you're looking for, because then it helps us explain the different opportunities and kind of cater that conversation to exactly what you're looking for.
Excellent. What about you, Adam? So I know that you guys also have some internship opportunities. You shared that. We shared with our students on the FMA website. What are your tips from the other side, having been out there for such a long time? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, probably, I think what you're all doing today is a really good first step. You're here, you're networking, you're learning about opportunities. And then if something sounds interesting, make sure you take the next step and reach out, follow up with those individuals. I mean, I think everybody here on the panel is here to, we want to support Whitewater, we want to support the students. So there's an open invitation to kind of reach out. But really, what probably the biggest thing that I've learned is how early the process starts. So with our company, for example, I mean, we're actively recruiting on campus now for internships next summer and for full-time placement next summer. So and that process started maybe a month ago. So we're about a month in that already, filling up spots for next year. So how early it happens is, I think it's crazy that we're doing this early, but you've got to plan way ahead. So be ready, be prepared in the summer to hit the ground running when you come to school, to kind of start looking for those internship and full-time placement opportunities.
Okay. And from the HR point of view, Jeff, so what do you have to share with our students?
Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate, being here is step one. Take advantage of all the opportunities you get to be put in front of employers and ask questions. Sometimes it can be very intimidating. I remember being in your shoes, being like, how am I going to go walk up to these 7 booths and 7 employers and talk to them comfortably? You're not. It's going to be uncomfortable until you get comfortable with it. And I'll tell you that everyone that you talk to is just another human being, and we're here to help and support you. And we want to bring you into part of our organizations. So we want to see you succeed. We want to succeed ourselves. So just make sure you put yourself out there, have those conversations, and ask questions. Being able to research the employers beforehand is night and day difference. I expect candidates to have questions about who we are as an organization, because that's how we're going to determine best fit for both you and our organization. So be sure to have some questions in mind and approach those employers with confidence.
Perfect. Now, what I want students to also learn is more about what does it mean to work for the banking industry or on any sort of FP&A role on the corporate finance side. So my next question is, what do you actually do on a daily basis, so they can learn a little bit more about that? What is it exactly that entails? Because we have different types of titles: VP of business banker, and then we have associate national banker. So some of them senior VP of credit products group, for example. The students typically, they tell me they have no idea what to expect when they apply for a position, right? So Bob, do you want to start?
Well, it's hard to say what I do on a daily basis. And I say that jokingly, but it's true. One day I'll have somebody walk into my office and they're asking for a $500 short-term loan because they need to fix their car to get to work. And then the next day I might be talking to somebody about a $10 million real estate purchase. So it's the whole gamut of stuff you run into, and then you have to worry about underwriting your deals, and every day is a little bit of an adventure, but that's kind of the appeal to me. No, no day's the same, and every day has its own unique set of challenges.
Okay, that's good. What about you, Melissa? You're working also at a small bank. So First Citizen State Bank is also a small bank. So what is it? What is it that is unique about your role?
So for me in loan operations, it's unlike what Bob does. He's in the front-facing side of the bank. I'm in the back-facing side. My clients are the internal clients, which are Bob and the third parties that we work with. So our appraisers, our title companies, flood vendors that determine whether your property's in a flood zone or not, our examiner friends. So this week I have 2 audits going on, one with our accounting firm and one with a loan review firm. And that's part of our regulatory expectations. But it's working with them to get files and copies of documents and copies of financial statements. But on a daily basis, I'm working on technology that prints documents for you to get your $10 million loan, for you to get your car loan, to manage and get your statements that you get on a monthly basis. That's what loan operations does, and that's what I manage every day. And so my department reviews what went on the day before. We have a slew of reports that we look at. We reconcile the bank as far as the loan accounts are concerned. We produce loan documents. We add those loans to the system. We work with our investors, which are Fannie Mae, Federal Home Loan Bank. So there's, on a daily basis, any number of things that I guess I could be doing depending on where things are at within what needs to be done and the priorities of the bank that day.
Okay, excellent. Adam, what about you? You're at a bigger bank. So what difference does it make working for a bigger banks, and you have other experiences too beforehand? So what's your take in the industry?
So I mean, so banking, I guess, regardless of the size, you're doing similar activities. It's just probably the size of the client that you're working with and what the client's needs are. But in my role, my family doesn't know what it means either with the title, but kind of the easiest way to think about it. So I don't know if there's anybody that's in an applied investment program here. Are there anybody in that? No? One. So think my group is doing the analysis, diving into our clients, our prospects to understand the health of the company. And if this is a company that we like, is it a company that we think can repay their debt obligations? We're trying to assess the risk and the ability for them to repay their loan obligations to us. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what my team does. We're responsible for the underwriting, the diligence, and then the origination of all our debt products to our clients and prospects. So my group teams up with Bob's role. Bob is on the sales side, so he's out there shaking hands, kissing babies, and then we're making sure that he's doing that with the risk profile that we'd like. In undergrad, or at least when I was in school, a lot of the time and focus is spent on working with equities, so kind of understanding the equity market, diving in and trying to figure out valuation of companies. So think a lot of that same analysis is what we are doing in my team and what we're doing on a daily basis, except instead of focusing on future valuations, we're focused on cash flow and how much if their ability to repay. So
I think that was a pretty good kind of introduction. Now we want to switch to the regulatory bodies, so Barry, on the regulation side, FDIC. So what does it mean to be on the regulation side of the banking industry?
Sure. So when we do examinations of banks as we go along, we do many of the banks that are actually on the panel, have a lot of friends here. Thank you. And what we do is we go out and we do bank examinations at those banks. We take a look at either their safety and soundness, the financial stability of that bank, or their compliance with regulations. There are 2 different sides to the aisle for our regulations. What we do is we go out, we actually do on-site examinations. It usually takes about 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks. And we look at all aspects of that bank. And then we write reports and we take a look and make sure that they're doing the right things, whether it be from a compliance perspective or a safety and soundness perspective.
Nick, what do you want to add to that from the OCC side? I know you were here 2 days ago, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
how many of students. So
Yeah, so not going to build on anything Barry said. I think that's pretty standard between the FDIC, OCC. Only difference that I want to point out, more so structurally, FDIC looks at all state chartered banks, and then the OCC, we regulate all national charters. So any bank with a state bank name, things like that, that'll be Barry's team in the FDIC. Any bank with a national bank name will be us at the OCC. But I'd imagine our processes and the things we look at are very similar across our two regulatory bodies. Only other thing I'll add, another important thing we look at is if the banks are providing fair access to financial products and services, and that's part of compliance as well.
gotcha. And what do you do also, if you want to add to that? You shared this with our FMA students, but in case anybody missed it, so how do you examine banks? Like, what do? You travel? If you can share a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Barry kind of alluded to it, but we'll perform on-site examinations at any of our institutions. At least on the OCC side, a lot of our community banks are on what we call an 18-month fiducia cycle. So we'll go and do a full scope examination every 18 months where we'll look at safety and soundness, compliance, and kind of all the things we've already talked about. With COVID, some of that's changed a little bit with the emergence of, efficiencies in terms of being able to work offsite in a hybrid work environment. So a lot of times now, we're going on for about 1 week and then working from our office in Wauwatosa for the other week or working at home. But it's a pretty good experience. I've been able to go a lot of different places in Wisconsin, been able to go up to the UP, which is beautiful this time of year. Not as excited to go up in January as I would be in September. But, really cool opportunities. I've been to DC. I've been, all around the Midwest on different examinations. So it's a pretty good experience. And what's really cool and, what I enjoy most is you're always doing something different. You might be on an exam for 2 weeks looking at asset quality, reviewing specific commercial credits. And then the next 2 weeks, you're looking at asset liability modeling in another institution. So there's a lot of variety, and it's a really great opportunity to learn a lot about banking in a short amount of time in the beginning of your career.
Excellent. So you're saying that the regulation side is a good place to start and then move to the industry? Is that
Regulations, OCC is a good place to stay too. But really, it's a great starting point for anyone to get in, and then getting that experience will make you marketable, whatever you want to do going forward in your career.
Perfect. And last but not least, Jaime. So about FP&A side, working for Rockwell, what does it mean to be on the corporate finance, corporate accounting side of finance? You're the sole person essentially. So take your
One
time.
of these things just doesn't belong here. So I don't do anything like what they do. I'll give you a brief overview of my own career. I've been at Rockwell for 22 years. I graduated with an accounting degree. I'm a CPA, but I did a small number of accounting type jobs. I was in a general accounting team. I did cost accounting. We also have an audit team and, of course, external reporting and things like that. And then at some point, I like to joke that I flipped to the dark side and I went to financial planning and analysis. I've done a number of jobs that are helping to support our business units. So if you think like strategic kinds of conversations about, whatever it is that the business unit is trying to accomplish, increase sales or reduce costs or, insert any level of detail lower than that into a P&L, that tends to be where you play in a business unit. I've also done more corporate like FP&A positions. So that's, your level of materiality changes dramatically. If you're in a business unit, it's pretty small. And if you're at corporate, you're like, if it doesn't end in an M, I don't care. Don't bother me. And then believe it or not, we have a fair number of people that actually will flip to a different function. So I've done about a third of my career in roles that were more like IT. Sometimes I would say IT paid me, but I was still a finance person. So most recently, I had a role where I owned all of our financial systems and applications for the entire company globally. And I worked with IT to make them function and perform better, or to do an upgrade, or whatever it might have been. So that's a pretty good overview, right? Like all kinds of accounting jobs, all kinds of, supporting a business unit or going into corporate. We have treasury applications. We have a guy that supports our pension, dwindling, just so you know, dwindling. Fewer people in it these days. But, lots and lots of variety. And I would say that generally corporate settings tend to be like that. Lots of different opportunities, lots of variety. I've kind of been here, there, and everywhere. And so hopefully that's a good demonstration of what corporate looks like.
And I know that you've hired our students. Tatiana used to be on the FMA board, now is there. So when you're looking for students for these kind of roles, what do you look exactly? What do you think would make students successful for these kind of roles? In both ways. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so like when we try to give like a very quick synopsis of what it is that we're looking for, my number one thing is somebody who demonstrates a natural level of curiosity. So sort of like some of the other panelists answering about like do some research, about the companies before career day. Same kind of thing when I'm talking to a person or interviewing people. I want to know that it doesn't take a lot, you guys. I'm just telling you. Just do a couple minutes on their website. How big is the company? Where are they located? I'll tell you a real story because it's funny to me. I interviewed somebody once, many years ago now. And, well, why don't you introduce yourself to us? And the kid, super animated, really excited. Okay, we're off to a good start. And I just can't wait to help people invest their money. But we don't do that. Literally, guys, less than 5 minutes a company. It doesn't need to take a lot. You need to kind of have an idea. Where are you located? How big are you? What kinds of opportunities do you have? And you're off to the races. It doesn't need to be a science project, okay? Yeah.
So don't be that person, It's
I'm only going to use you as an example.
please. We don't want any Whitewater student to say anything like that, please. Let's get back to Barry. What about you on the regulation side? So if somebody wants to be on the regulation side of the banking industry, what kind of characteristics do they need to like breaking the law to be on the regulation side, to be able to easily figure out what's going on?
That actually could rule you out, but I think one of the things, and we just mentioned it, was curiosity, a willingness to learn. Because I know that when I came into this job and I came out of Whitewater, I started with the FDIC in 1991, started in the Milwaukee field office, and I wanted to learn more about banking. And my thought was, I truly thought, I was like, well, I'm going to get my commission. Usually that takes about 3.5 years. I'm going to get my commission, then I'm going to go get a real job. And here I am 33 years later, still working for the FDIC because there are a lot of different opportunities, a lot of things to learn. And the one thing that I didn't really realize up front was how much I would learn. You go through Whitewater, you get a finance degree or whatever degree that you're getting, accounting degree. I saw many different ones there. And you feel like you're pretty well prepared. And then what you realize when you get out into the world is there's a whole new set of stuff that now you have to learn from a banking perspective. I think Nick brought up before too, it's very broad-based. There's a lot of stuff to learn. When we have people come through our training programs, generally it takes about 3.5 years to get to the point when you can lead an examination. And that actually is a pretty compressed time, and it flies by like you wouldn't believe, because you are learning so many aspects of banking, all the way from the operational aspects to lending, IT, all sorts of different things. So I think one of the biggest things, a willingness to learn, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for you to come in as a finished product, because you won't be. There's no way that you can be. In fact, in 3.5 years, you'll get to the point where you can run an exam, but you still won't know everything. And 33 years later, you're still learning things on a daily basis. So make sure that you're willing to, able to, and are engaged to learn, because that will not stop when you finish with Whitewater. It'll not stop until you're done. So make sure that you're willing to learn, you're willing to engage, you're willing to try something different, and then you'll go forward with that.
Excellent. Melissa, as a female working in the industry, as you can see, the room has quite a few female students. So, and what I want you to also share a little bit is what do you recommend to our female students? It's growing. We have, compared to 8 years ago when I joined here, we have more female students in our classes. Finance, I'm talking about more specifically, in our FMA meetings, all of that. We'll still need more work to do, but what do you have for them more specifically?
I guess I would say just have the confidence in yourself. So I'm kind of looking at maybe the half a dozen or less of you guys, females in the room compared to the rest of you guys. Have the confidence in yourself, because coming out of college, I graduated in 2002 from UW-Madison, so I'm not an alumni, I'm sorry. I did not have that confidence. I had the confidence in my skills and the technique, but not like that deep personal confidence. And I didn't get that into my 30s when I joined the RMA group and I elevated myself to a national level and was speaking in front of like 300 people. And it was like those exercises that that brought it out of myself to be able to say, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm confident in what I know. I'm going to go get what I want. And that's when I started learning and going into, I worked for the FDIC for a couple of years. That showed me and did, help me a lot. Then I went into more of like the VP roles at that time and just building up that confidence, knowing what you want to do, having that there. You're not going to know everything from day one. So don't walk in with that super ultra confidence, like I know everything, but I'm curious. I'm willing to learn. I can take initiative. I can be that helping individual and just, I guess, have that in yourself. So.
And Jaime, do you want to add anything to that?
I thought that was really great. You're welcome. I would say the other thing, not different than, right, like a growing percentage of female participation in these lines of study. Same in the industry. We have more female colleagues, being elevated to the leadership level positions, even in my company. And so I like that, right? They've kind of set that example for the rest of us. And let's just really be honest. I mean, you're using your brain, so like, you're good, you're good.
I was going to say too, I mean, I've noticed in, I guess, my career, females are more empathetic. And so working and managing a team of people, you're oftentimes more able to work with a wide variety of personalities. And sorry, guys, sometimes you're just not able to manage that appropriately. So I find some of the female bosses that I've had are some of the greatest individuals to work for. So.
And I want everybody else's perspective on this too, because this is not just, one point of view. I want everybody else on the panel. If you have anything to share, Jeff, I don't know if you want to share anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
from
think
the-
it's great to see an increased involvement. I know at Bank of New Glarus, we have several of our VPs, SVPs, who are women, and they bring a lot to the table. So, but we don't look at it as who's male, who's female. It's who can lead the team, because everyone can lead the team. We've got our chief credit officer, Elise. She's wonderful, very, very knowledgeable, runs a great team. And then we actually just have a new compliance individual who's bringing a lot to the table for us and coming up with great ideas. And we are the size where we can pivot. We can redesign programs, and we want to take her knowledge and insight and make that an improvement for us as an organization. So I would just encourage you to go out there, be confident, and know that you can be that SVP role. And I look forward to hiring you in that role someday.
Excellent. The other thing is, when you're looking at students, people that come to interview, what do you like to see specifically, or what do you think sets them apart when you look at their resume? Because quite often what happens is, you get a lot of resumes, you have to look at them. What would set students apart? And and I have another follow-up question for that, but yeah. So yes, yes.
I probably should have covered in my introduction. So besides the job I get paid to do, I have some of my associates in the back of the room. They already know that I say this. My favorite part of my job that I don't get paid for is I manage our finance early career programs for Rockwell in the United States. And so every year I have some number of rotational associates. Those are people that have graduated from college already. And then I have quite a few interns every summer. So I look at a lot of resumes. And maybe this is shocking, I don't know. But so if I'm given the opportunity to talk to only one of two students, and one is a 4.0, and the other one is something less than a 4.0, all the way down to a 2.75. If the kid that has a 2.75 has other things like, I'm in intramural sports and I volunteer for whatever, an after school program, whatever it might be, right? I will talk to the 2.75 kid. I like well-rounded students, kind of like one of you guys was saying about the unpredictability of your, every day is a little bit different. That's how life is. And if you can manage many variety of things and your schedule works for you, you're probably going to fit in better with that unpredictability. So that would be what I'm looking for. Somebody who is balanced, right? Does lots of things. And so even if you think it's a little bit silly that you play intramural basketball or something on Tuesday night with your friends, put that on your resume, because I'll look at you twice as opposed to not. Okay?
Anybody else want to add to that? I know yeah.
I can jump in a
absolutely.
little bit. So, yeah, so I think that the GPA aspect is good. That's a good comment. I mean, as I kind of look at resumes, I do, for me, I'd look at GPA, kind of what that looks like. But then I want to know, when I look at experiences, whether that's at school, at organizations, like kind of what that extracurricular activity involvement is. But then the one thing that I really focus in on resumes and when I'm talking in interviews is, can the person talk to what they're putting on their resume? A lot of times people get weeded out because I'll ask a question based on an experience that they had at a prior internship or something that they put about their club. And if that individual can't speak to it and explain it, that's usually a red flag for me. So kind of definitely I'm looking for honesty on the resume. And people that are involved, well-rounded individuals, because I'm glad I'm not going through this process now, because it's amazing how much talent there is that's out there, including in this room. So keep up the good work.
Nick, since you're again recently went through this process, and OCC is also hiring every year, and you're involved with that. So what do you have for students? What is it specifically that you think would set them apart?
Yeah, so I'll start this off with the caveat. I do not have any hiring authority. I don't necessarily review resumes. I'm only about one place on the totem pole off from the bottom. So certainly not as much experience in terms of reviewing resumes and saying, this is what's going to set you apart. One thing, certainly echoing what Adam said, be able to speak to what your actual experiences are. I'd also certainly say, highlight when you've been in a leadership role, or when you've, whether it be in a club, team, whatever it may be, where you've helped improve a process, the program as a whole, be able to speak to those kind of experiences. Also, in whatever interview you have, be able to speak to a time where you've been able to be flexible and show your flexibility in terms of whether it be scheduling, having to, balance two projects at once, drop one, move to another. Because I know specific to the OCC, those are pretty core foundations of what we're looking for in terms of someone who's able to, balance competing priorities, be flexible and kind of go with the flow. Because a lot of things are changing as they go, especially when we're on bank exams. You'll think everything's going well for 13 out of the 14 days, and then the 14th day, something hits you right in the face and you're like, man, now I got to deal with this and work through things and figure it out. So being able to, share those experiences, in a fluent manner is something I would certainly, look to have, not just on the resume, but being able to back that up with specific instances and experiences.
Excellent. So, to summarize, I think you really care about GPA, but that's not it, right? You're looking for a well-rounded individual who's doing well in the classes, but also is involved, active outside of the classroom too. So, because that shows, I guess, character, I think.
Well, if I can add maybe two more
yes,
things.
absolutely.
I'd say this is very simple. Read your resumes and make sure there's not spelling errors, the sentences are coherent. I don't know how many resumes I've looked at that, first of all, they can't spell things correctly. So I'm like, come on, let's just move on from there. I need somebody in my role that's attention to detail. So when you're applying for a role, kind of have that in mind, especially if you're going into finance. Most of us, I would say, have a very specific attention to detail. Yeah. And then the second is just be yourself. Don't be so robotic. I tell him, I have a junior in college right now, and he's very robotic. And I say, just be yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're talking with somebody that's looking to hire you, you're going to be a different personality when you walk in the door. So be that personality at the table, but don't be obnoxious, obviously. Be respectful, but be yourself. They're going to ask you hopefully off the wall questions to bring some of that personality out. So I would expect you to show that personality in the interview.
I would say maybe even kind of connecting several of the thoughts. Don't give the answer you think that they want to hear, because that's not authentic. You're going to show up on the first day and they're going to be like, whoa. Yeah.
So no fake news, right? On the resume or during the interview process, I think, right? Be authentic, be yourself. What can we do here to prepare students? So, looking from outside, because we talk about all of this with my colleagues during our meetings, every time I'm with FMA, every week, pretty much. I'm trying to get feedback from students, but we also want feedback from you. So what can we do to help students? What do you think we can do to support them even better? Is there anything that comes to your mind right away?
I can jump in.
Yes.
So I hit on a little bit before, but I think some of the real world type experiences that you're doing here is great. Like the applied investment program, I think is huge. I know you have this huge center with all the Bloomberg terminals. I think that's huge. So the more things that can recreate what it's going to be like in the day-to-day is good. Probably the one thing I would say is everything is very focused on equity markets. So I would try to, like, the equity markets it's on the news, it's out there, it's sexy, but also that's a small sliver of kind of corporate finance. So that's probably one, is kind of trying to dive into other areas of corporate finance. And then I know this is mostly finance focused, but accounting and being able to read the financial statements and know how those interact, that is huge, at least for my world. I mean, somebody that can come in the door with the base of knowledge on how to read the financial statements is going to be well ahead of a lot of people that other campuses that we're interviewing with that are more liberal arts focused or economics majors that don't have that kind of analytical skill set that we're looking for.
Yeah, I emphasize it a lot. I have a lot of students coming to my office asking me, what should I do? I want to do double major. I want to pick something up other than finance. So I typically tell them accounting and economics, depending on which route they want to go. And I think for the banking industry, especially for corporate finance, accounting, I think would go a long way. Any sort of, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would actually also add to that, okay, so yes, totally agree about being able to read, a balance sheet. That's a big deal. So at Rockwell, and I think a lot of corporate FP&A places, even when you're in finance, you actually need to know a little bit about accounting. I know that's hard, but debits and credits are a big deal. But besides that, if you're thinking from a classwork kind of perspective, what you could augment your studies with, I firmly believe the future of corporate FP&A is going to be heavily reliant on data analytics. So take a class.
we do actually have data analytics, and our supply chain and IT department is taking care of that side. And yes, so I think this is also a really good tip, taking at least a course maybe, right? So, okay.
Even in loan operations, I use data analytics with Fiserv as the company we use on a daily basis. They have a program that I can write reports in. That's like one of the funnest things I get to do, because I get to write and almost do programming of a report to pull data out to see somebody identified an error the other day. Well, now I got to go find if there's other loans that have that same error. So I'm pulling all of our data, and there's thousands and thousands of points of data that we can analyze. We use a lot of them for regulators and things too. So
Yes. Yes. So actually, yes.
Was that
Thank
placed?
you.
Was placed beforehand? Probably. There we go.
Thank you for this. This wasn't planned, I swear. But but yeah, thank you for the reminder, Garrett. Yes, we are launching a fintech emphasis and also a banking emphasis. The reason I was asking this is because, over the past few years, we're debating with the idea. The last time I got to teach the banking course was the course that you took during the pandemic. And for various reasons, I didn't get to teach that course until this semester. And now we're launching a banking emphasis in order to help students learn more about the banking industry. The course that I'm teaching was more focused on the risk management side of the bank, but what we want students to learn is also the loan operation side of the bank. So when we go to the RMA loan competition, we can be much more competitive next time. So Melissa is actually helping us develop that course, and she's well into the recording side of it. That course is going to be actually offered online. I'm planning to record my course online to be able to help students take these courses even online if they cannot take it on campus. So yes, and fintech is also being developed. I think we're a little bit, yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit longer. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me so I can help you more with the banking emphasis side of things. The other question I specifically have is, and this is a question some of the students asking me, what can I do in terms of certification, stuff like that for the banking industry too? So on the investment side, when students come to me, they say, what can I do? I tell them, well, one of the best things you can do is the CFA exam. It's a huge commitment, but even if you enroll and pass the first level, you're way more competitive than, I would say, 80-90% of the students looking for internship or jobs. What about the banking industry or corporate finance? What students can do to be more competitive? Would that be SIE? Would that be anything specific that they can do? So what do you recommend?
I don't know. I guess for me, I'm on the loan operations and the credit analysis. So if you're looking to analyze the credits that Bob's bringing in the door, having an accounting background, knowing your balance sheet and income statement is very, very important. But I would also encourage, like, to put a plug in maybe for the banking courses that are going to be offered. Through those, there is an opportunity with RMA, the Risk Management Association, to take a credit essentials certificate. If you're looking to go into the credit side, this kind of broadens your horizon on credit analysis relative to banking. And so taking that certificate would elevate you when you are looking at applying for jobs, whether it's with the regulatory side or on the banking side, to show that you have that deeper knowledge of credit analyst work. So that's one example.
And I would kind of piggyback on that. If you want to get into banking at all, if you want to get in on the sales side of banking, it's important to have that credit background. So the more you can do to learn about the credit side and the underwriting side of the world, the better off you'll be as a commercial lender or a mortgage lender or whatever sales side of banking you want to get into.
The best lenders that I've worked with in my career have started out as credit analysts and even sometimes in loan operations for a year or two, because they have that general background that they can then emphasize to their clients and have a better and deeper knowledge of the bank. So if you're more of a sales, talky, kiss babies, that sort of thing, get even a year or two under you from the credit standpoint.
And for the record, I was a credit analyst for several years and managed a credit team before I got back into sales. So, but yeah, credit is the way to go. And the worst lenders I've ever worked with had no clue on credit. They just bring a bunch of deals in and throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
My lab, which I was also in workout for 9 years. And workout is, hey, my loan's not paying. Now I need to repo your house, repo your car, take your business away from you. So yeah, the worst lenders go out and sell and then hope it sticks, and then have no clue how to analyze the financials and guide and advise their clients on how to manage their business as it goes along.
And I think you said a really important word there is advise. If you want to be successful in banking, you kind of have to take that advisory role on for your clients. So yeah, that like you said, there's people that just want to get out there and sell and meet a number. But if you truly care about what you're doing, and you truly care about the people that you're helping as your clients, you want to take that advisory role on.
So I almost say, like I think you asked before, like what classes could you take in addition to your technical skills? I think almost psychology is, if you don't have to take that anymore, take at least the basic, because I think that helps with the empathetic side of things. And that's even more and more needed now in today's world, I think, is just understanding that empathetic side.
And I would add,
Jeff.
outside of your formal certification programs, here in Wisconsin, we are very fortunate to have the Wisconsin Bankers Association. The trainings and content they provide is a great resource. So we send a lot of our staff through training, and they have been a great outlet for learning that outside of other formal programs. So we are in a good spot that we have plenty of resources available. We don't necessarily expect you to have all those courses when you come join us at the bank. That's something that we put those employees through, and a lot of times it's not right away. You sometimes need to get a grasp of your day-to-day before throwing you into a training that's just going to overcomplicate it and maybe not make sense at first. So everything has to be learned in a process, and it does all click. It just takes some time. So
Maybe one more, just to, maybe I'm not answering exactly the question, but Jamie mentioned it before that she runs a development program for new talent that's coming into Rockwell. So Lisa, I like, for my world and with PNC, I don't know if I'm looking for anybody to come in with certain certificates or certain achievements. I mean, yeah, if somebody has a CFA level 1, that's a positive. People like, that's one that jumps out. I do have CPAs that are on my team that got that accreditation, but really new interns that are coming to my world, we're putting them through a development program. So we have a 2-year development program where we're training these individuals and new employees on how PNC views the world. So you're learning kind of the more classroom work. So all of our new hires that started in August this year, they're still in our training program. They're going to be going through that till probably about November in the actual classroom training. So that's, 4 months of classroom, 3 months of classroom training. And then they're going out for about another 1.5 years where we're working with them closely and developing them. So there's a lot of on-the-job training and know-how when you're starting out in your career. So a lot of companies do have these development type programs. I encourage you to look into that as well.
And I brought, are you 3 listening? I brought 3 of my associates with me. So kind of like what you're saying, I don't actually necessarily expect for applicants to have some of these, extra things necessarily, but I firmly expect a little continuing education once they work for me. How many of you are considering continuing education now that you've been at Rockwell for 2 to 4 years? The answer is all 3
Well,
of
they're
them.
all going to raise their hand now. Yeah.
They are.
No
They
pressure.
are.
No pressure, Yeah, I highly recommend you guys they're sitting there. They're going to be outside during the networking piece. So make sure to reach out to them, learn from them as much as possible. That's the reason they're here. And thank you guys for coming out too. Barry, I think you want to add something.
Yeah, and I would just take off of that too. From the FDIC perspective, we're not looking for specific certifications. However, we are looking for you to develop afterwards. So if you can come in with some fintech classes with a banking emphasis, that shows that you have that interest. And I'm looking for, when I come here, and I'll be coming here next week, when I look for people, I'm looking for engagedness. I'm looking for you to be engaged. If you're not really that interested, it's a 3.5-year process to get me, or for me to get you to be commissioned. And it's an uphill battle if you're not engaged. So I'm looking for people who are engaged. If I can do that, if I can see that you're taking the steps, we have 6 classes in Arlington, Virginia that we put our newer examiners through. We will take you step by step by step through those things. So I'm looking for engagedness, and I'm looking for that level of interest when you come talk to me. Be engaged with it.
Okay, excellent. So show that you have that drive, interest. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have something like a certificate under your belt, but showing interest and taking some courses that shows that you're on that path would help a lot. Shout out to WBA, by the way. I know Jody from WBA was supposed to be here. She fell outside. So I hope she's well right now.
There's some brochures out there on the table too for just some careers in banking. So if you're looking to get connected with what is out there, I mean, one, thank you to those individuals that I think at least connected with me. I know I'm sure some of the other panelists on LinkedIn, you guys reached out and connected, but going back to one of the questions I think that Mo had asked is like, how can you be prepared to interview with any of us? It's just, or how can you use some of these tools to your advantage? It's connecting. I try to emphasize that with my son right now, is just connect with those people. And when you're going to career fairs, don't go to where things are comfortable. I just had that talk with him yesterday. He went to 2 places that he already knows about. So go somewhere else, go talk to somebody else, go connect with somebody else that you're not familiar with, that you may have some interest in, but you're really not sure what they do or what their company does. So when you're going to those career fairs, seek those uncomfortable situations out. And I think someone mentioned that before too. Just another piece of advice.
No, yeah, absolutely. And every year during Finance Day, we have multiple students connecting with individuals that come to the panel and end up getting an internship or a career opportunity. So you'll see them throughout the day too. One thing that I personally try to do, and some of my colleagues too in our classes, is to have presentations embedded. I studied engineering. We didn't have no presentation. I remember the only presentation I had when I had to present my final thesis to graduate, and it was horrifying for me to get in front of students, and it was a large group of people, much bigger than this, and I didn't even know, like I had no idea that I'm gonna feel that way to begin with. And I guess I shared this with some of my students too. And that kind of got me thinking about it. So when I moved to the US, imagine I had to do this, and I switched to the MBA program, business, which requires you to present. And I had to do this in a different language. So imagine how that felt. But what I learned in the process is practicing, doing it is the only way to go. So what I do as a faculty here is I make sure that my upper level classes has a presentation scheduled. It's challenging because it's time consuming, but what I love to see is students coming, sharing a new topic, something about the industry that I think is interesting. And some of them, they absolutely hate it and hate me for it, maybe, which is okay. But I think the majority would appreciate it, maybe at least down the road. So I want you guys to speak to the importance of presentation and writing maybe a little bit, how much that matters in your industry, in your specific part for that. So Nick had to present, I remember Nick had to present online because it was during COVID. I still remember. And his topic was OCC. I still remember that. So how much do you have to share about that? Writing, presentation, both? So
Yeah, so at the OCC, we do a lot of both, right? So a big piece, as Barry said, we, after an exam is over, we communicate all of our findings in a report of examination. So that kind of walks through briefly for each area what we found And it obviously, if we find issues in any areas, we elaborate. And that's kind of how we communicate to each bank's board exactly what we found. If there's any specific risks or risk management practices that we want to point out to the board, say, hey, just so you know, we found this, just so they're aware, and they can ensure that everything aligns with what their risk tolerance is. Then also, we communicate that in person as well. We go present our reports of examination to each bank's board sometime after they've had a chance to review it. We also communicate our findings to the management teams during each of our exams. We're constantly having updates with them. Here's what we found, here's how things are going. And then, it's interesting because a lot of the times, at least since I started in banking, in a lot of our institutions that we supervise, things have been going relatively well outside of early last year when, small liquidity crisis came up for some of our banks, and more broadly in the entire system itself, there were a lot of issues. So there haven't been a lot of issues we've had to communicate. A lot of that's starting to come up now. We've seen, a few institutions where we started downgrading, specific commercial credits where we hadn't done that the first 2 years of my career. So those are, interesting conversations. It's not just presenting, it's being able to handle conflict or getting that pushback, which I think is something that, you don't really have a lot of opportunities to do in college and things like that. So just being able to go through doing those presentations, at least getting comfortable speaking in front of people, speaking to people, because then, you start your career, there's always going to be the next progression in how you need to communicate. So getting those foundational skills, I think, is really important. And no one likes doing it. I didn't like having to roll into class and, have to actually put jeans on or something rather than just rolling in sweatpants. But, just know it's something that's going to benefit you down the road, and take it seriously. And also, when you can, find something to present that you're passionate about. No one wants to have to give a presentation on something that they're told they have to do, or something where it's like, man, now I have to do all this research on it and it's not that interesting. I'm sure you all have a bunch of experiences. There's 4 or 5 I can name off the top of my head from when I was in college, but won't go into that there. But yeah.
Can I also say that the word presentation probably conjures a picture in your head about something grand, like standing up in front of a room that's full like this. And I would say that that's not maybe the ordinary presentation. Quite literally be, we're in a meeting and I'm presenting, I did this research, here's my recommendation. So presentation can be, standing in front of a room full of 300 people, or presenting could be sitting around a conference room table and, telling the other people that are at the table about something that you've done, and they, you collectively need to make a decision about. And that happens way more often than standing up in front of a room full of people.
Barry.
Yeah, from my perspective too, just like Nick said, it's about 100% of our jobs at the FDIC. A lot of people think, if you're the examiner, if you're the, the regulator, you get to go in, you get to tell people what to do, how to do it. That's not the way it works. We have discussions, and those discussions are discussions. Kind of like you said, a lot of those discussions, maybe 5, 6, 7 people sitting around the room. To be able to have a good set of questions, be able to adapt. When somebody says something, and they bring up something that you didn't think about, adapt to it and be able to do that on the fly, that's what we're looking for. And so, that's not a skill that you necessarily come out of college with, but it's one that you develop. So the more that you get to do it, the earlier you get to do it, the more you get to do it, that is huge. It really makes you very marketable in I'd say almost any of the roles that we have here. Certainly for me, that's something I'm looking for. I'm a supervisor in the Milwaukee field office. That's what I'm looking for my newer employees, the ability to adapt and to be able to speak to things when they're not quite ready to do it, but able to do it. That's something that I'm really looking for. The writing piece, absolutely. Like Nick said, we write all of our exam findings in a report of examination. It's a big part of what we do. So being able to do those 2 communication skills, it's a big, big part of what we do at the FDIC OCC too.
Jeff.
Yeah, I would just add, so you're going to have a lot of small presentations. That's how my day goes every day, I feel like. A big thing on that and what we do is understanding yourself and the way you communicate. So all of our employees, we use the simple DISC assessment to understand communication style. and that's shared amongst the team of peers that they work with on a regular basis. Not only does that help you figure out how you communicate, but more importantly, I would argue, it tells you kind of how your team likes to be communicated with or understood. So you can give your best presentation when you know how you present and how your peers best receive communication. So we do that with every employee, and they're aware of who their peers are, how they best communicate. And not to bash on lenders, but they generally just want the answer. They don't want to know how your weekend was. And those are little things that are going to kind of set the mold for how you communicate with your peers. So
Awesome. And with that, I want to open it up to students if they have any questions. I can continue this for another hour if you want, but I want you guys to ask any questions you may have, and I can give you.
All right. So my question is, what makes your job like rewarding, or do you feel like you're benefiting society or people?
Guess I can start, and I'm sure Barry would echo a lot of this as well. A lot of what we do, it's for the American people and all the depositors in the institutions we regulate to ensure that their institutions are operating in that safe and sound manner. So the money they have there, the financial future that they're building is safe. So there's a lot of reward in having that be our mission when we're getting up every day and doing a lot of the work that we have to do. We know that there's a good end purpose in mind there, and working with our bankers as well. A lot of the different we work in a lot of different institutions. So a lot of the times we try to be as consultative as we can. A lot of people think of regulators as trying to lay down the hammer all the time. That's not really how it is. A lot of our relationship is here's what we're seeing. We give a lot of recommendations. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we've seen work well in other institutions. Take it or leave it, but things to consider. So that's a really rewarding piece as well. Being able to help them make their processes better and overall help them feel better about all of that. Just a really quick example. I was like the third bank exam I was ever on. I was training, and we were walking out of this bank, and this older lady walks up to us and asks, "Are you guys making sure the bank is, doing everything good with our money?" We're like, "Yes, ma'am." And then as she's walking away, my train team leader looks at us and he's like, "That's why we do it, boys." So it's just a funny little example of, a lot of the times we're in these small towns where a lot of the townie population knows exactly who the regulators are, and they show up every 18 months. So just kind of cool little story.
Yeah, much the same way. I've been around for 33 years, so one of the things that I got to experience was 2008 to 2010. Melissa was with us right in that time frame too, and that's when the economy really took a huge dive, and it took a dive across the board. And so what we were seeing at that time was really something. I had been with the FDIC for quite some time at that point, but I'd seen nothing like that. And so when you get to experience part of that, and I remember distinctly going to an examination. I won't be very specific about it, but I had brought out, when I'm looking at your credits, I see a pattern. And there's not a pattern as to which companies they are or anything like that, but there's a pattern as to how you do this. And the way that you do it is going to keep coming back to the situation that we have now, which is you have a lot of pretty bad loans. So I went through that whole thing with them. President later, I came back, I did a visit at that examination, and he said, when you were here, I didn't really believe you. And then a customer came in and had the exact same scenario playing out right in front of him. And he's like, I heard your voice, and I realized, oh God, we do this. And that was like extraordinarily gratifying for me, because I pointed something out that really did help them and help them become a better bank. They got much better. They did things better. And they turned around and did very well from that point. So that is a very gratifying point to what we do.
I mean, from my perspective, it's probably somebody mentioned advisory before. It's kind of be able to be an advisor for our clients. So whether it's a third generation family business owner that they're now looking to buy out the next generation, or the next generation's trying to come in to buy them out, helping them do that, to giving advice to how to grow, how to build a manufacturing facility, and how to finance it. So kind of being able to see those success stories with our clients and helping them through that, that's probably what I enjoy the most.
Anybody wants to add anything? Any other questions? Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So all you guys are kind of like in leadership roles. What was the biggest step from transitioning from being, someone who's part of a team to actually leading a team?
For me, I think it was learning the different personalities, and obviously not everyone's the same as I am. I think that was one of the hardest steps from being an individual on a team to leading a team. So you're kind of switching your mind shift from being a manager to a leader, and that's different. That's totally different. Managing is kind of doing those tasks and administrating things, whereas a leader is looking to coach, elevate. You're kind of putting yourself aside. You're looking to elevate that team, and if they move up and beyond, awesome, like you've done your job. But I would say being a leader is different than a manager. So watch those different things as you grow in your career.
And I think one of the challenges is kind of that self-assessment too, because you've done things a certain way for so long as an individual contributor, but once you move into managing individual contributors, you have to kind of realize what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you can do to improve your communication with those people so they can have a better experience and the team can grow from there.
Yeah, I think from my perspective too, I spent about half of my time as a field examiner and about half the time as a manager. And so when we go in, when we do those examinations, we go in as a team. One of the things that I look for now as a leader of those teams is, okay, knowing what this bank has, knowing what's going to be going on, what members do I need to get there? What members do I need to build to facilitate that? And then also looking forward, being a leader and looking forward to what does this field office look like after several of us are gone. We have several people in my office and in many offices that are getting very close to retirement. So we're building on new people. What are the skill sets? What are the types of things that we're looking for so that we can build that field office and I can retire and feel good about it?
The talent pipeline. Do you need a mic? I think.
So Nick, you kind of touched on it earlier, but how did you guys' jobs really change after COVID? Like your day-to-day process, like you're in person anymore, you're hybrid, and then what do you guys see towards like the future? Like any predictions?
Yeah, I can start. So, as I said earlier, a lot of it, we've realized that we don't have to travel 2 weeks in a row to a bank. Like I'm leading an exam now where the bank is 6 hours away. Is it as efficient for us to go up there for 2 weeks or just, do 1 week on site so we do have that in-person interaction and don't lose that aspect of it? But then the second week, as a lot of people are wrapping up, can we just have Teams calls and things like that? So I think that's been a large shift that isn't necessarily going away. I'd say some of it is moving back to the more in-person where as we were still in COVID and starting to come out, a lot of it was you can still work at home for that, second week or whatever it may be on the exam. Now it's more so the expectation is we all go into the office and, reading Wall Street Journal articles and things like that. I think that's pretty common to what a lot of different employers and industries are doing. So a slow move back to more in-person work in general. And for us as, the OCC, whether that means in a bank or in our office, it doesn't really matter. It's more just on site.
And I assume that's the case for the majority.
I could hit with for PNC. I mean, we're back to the office. There. I mean, in my world in corporate banking, you're out with going with clients. You're there's always flexibility because it's not like you're in the office 5 days a week. You're out with clients. You're going to meetings. But if you're kind of not doing that, the expectation, just full disclosure for my world, is that you're back in the office. Especially, maybe I view like with a cohort of all people that just started and having that networks and building those relationships. If you have a question on something, you just look over the shoulder and you've got a peer or you've got somebody right next to you that you can ask questions to. I've seen a huge pickup in our productivity and just the pickup and the acceleration of learning of our young talent over the last year versus what I saw during COVID. So, I mean, that's at least from my seat, it's pretty noticeable. So we are back in office. Our peers, I mean, JP Morgan, I think came out this week, or was it last week? They're back 5 days. So I think that's where it's trending. So the whole, at least in my industry, I think the whole work from home is probably somewhat going away.
Yeah, I guess it's industry relevant, but for the banking industry specifically, it's coming back. Yeah, I saw JP Morgan too. We're way ahead of our time, but I wanted to make up for the time that we lost since we started a little bit late. So thank you so much on behalf of the department, the college, and the university, and our students. I want you guys to give it up for these panelists because they have to. It's such a nice day out there, as you guys know. So coming out here, making the drive out here on a Friday, and being so flexible with me to be able to put these panels together. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart too. So thank you. So with that, we have the networking piece of it. Please mingle with them outside. Try to get some coffee, and soon we're going to be back for the real estate panel. So see you soon.